Do you think there's any way to reintroduce spirit and the soul of what food actually is to us, which is
Yes.
our life, back into the food system?
Yes. Yes. I think that's a great point. And this is what Casey Means talked about. And look, this is a very hard topic for a lot of people because the concept of spirituality, the concept of God, the concept that there is something bigger than us, the concept that there might be a creator. If you spend enough time as a scientist, and many of the greatest, most brilliant scientists of all time were very spiritual. Einstein, Nikola Tesla, Thomas Edison, Da Vinci, Ben Franklin. Like, the more you study, the more you realize that there is a ton that we can't explain. Even Huberman talks about it. Like, the more time you spend on the absolute miraculousness of life and how it works, the more you have to question that we don't know so much. And there's so many things that we can't measure. The loneliness example is a great one. And when you study, for example, all of the blue zones, and you study all of these like subgroups of populations that are incredibly healthy, they spend so much time with each other. They spend so much time in community. They spend so much time laughing in loving circles. And we don't know how to quantify that, but we know it's real. And I believe that when we eat an animal, we are absorbing some of that animal's energy. You can call it its soul. You could call it its consciousness. There's a lot of different terms for energy. And science is catching up, and quantum physics is all about this, by the way. But if you're constantly eating diseased, sick, abused animals, what do you think you're absorbing? I mean, just think about it like in a simple way. You don't even have to get super spiritual about it.
Mm-hmm.
I firmly believe from everything I have seen and studied that the closer we get to nature, and the meaning in terms of lack of processing, the closer we get to the ground, the closer we get to animals and plants and the sun and everything that is intrinsic to the majesty of nature, the healthier we become. And the farther we move away and the farther we think we can distance ourselves and play God, where we grow our food in laboratories, we don't need actual sunlight, we can use sun lamps, we can spend all of our time inside, we don't need to exercise, we can just put on those vests that vibrate our muscles. Like, basically a lot of what Brian Johnson is advocating, I am not a fan of. I think that is completely backwards. And if you do believe there is a creator, which I do, that is not what the creator wants from us. The creator wants us to enjoy and live off of the unbelievable, incredible aspects of nature that they created for us. We are children of this earth. This earth is a living, conscious entity, and we need to respect what it is. And the more we accept that and treat the earth as our mother, I think the healthier we'll become.
Mm. Yeah, it makes me think of Genesis. You know, we're created in the image of God. So if we're eating in alignment with what God has provided for us,
yes,
we're gonna be healthy.
We're gonna be fine.
Which is too simple of an answer for a lot of people who have degrees around nutrition.
Yeah.
But like, very, very simply put, like, that's a very easy compass for people to follow.
It's a very easy compass.
Yeah.
And again, go study all of these indigenous peoples all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been living this way for thousands of years, and they're happier than we are. They're thinner than we are. They have no chronic disease. And there is a way to take the best of our modern technology and the wisdom of nature that we had for thousands and thousands of years. And then just somehow in the last 50 years, we somehow like figured it out. Like, this is when we got sick. When we started playing God and we started thinking that we are smarter than nature is when we all have started to become as sick as we are.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really an integration of modern technology and God foods that have always been readily available to us.
Yeah. I don't think it's that complicated.
Yeah.
I really don't.
Is there
I really don't. And I also think there's something to be said about prayer, and I think about appreciation for the bounty and the abundance that we have as human beings. There's actually been scientific studies on people's health and people's outcomes when they pray on their food and when they give blessings to their food. And you can look these up. Like, this is not something I'm making up. And I think there's something to be said about having appreciation and respect for what we have been given.
Yeah, there's something powerful around just learning how to develop your own intuition and understanding, does this certain modality or this certain food, does it make me feel good or not? And just between the two of us, and a lot of our best memories have been sharing meals with the people that we love. And when you pray over that meal, that connection to the food, that connection to the people you're with, they're some of the best memories, man. And it's so simple too.
It's so simple.
So it's like, I don't even need to see a study. I just know how I feel when I do it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so simple. It's so simple, but it's really hard for people because we've become such a society focused on pure science that we've lost our connections to each other and we've lost our connections to nature. And the more disconnected we become, the sicker we've become.
I believe that public prayer over our food could be such a simple anecdote for such a large scale problem, because to me, the reverence for food is just such a deep human connection that it's hard to put words to that connection.
Yeah.
But when you do share food with people and you have great conversation and you're eating food that's sustaining your life, and you pray in a world where prayer is so, it's such a juxtaposition to the world today. We're too busy to slow down and actually have that appreciation for food. But if you do go out into public and are bold enough to pray over your food amongst other people, I think people take notice of that.
Yeah.
And are like, okay, they're praying over their food. Like that's interesting. At least like an awakening happens in small moments like that.
Well, it just teaches people respect, that we take for granted how easy our modern lives are, where you could just drive 1 mile to a 7-Eleven and just pick up a bag of Cheetos. We have lost respect for how fortunate and blessed we all are. And, just to remind your listeners, I was an atheist for 22 years. I was trained as an empirical data scientist. And so I had a long period of time where I only believed in what could be quantified and what was data. But when I cured my eye disease and every doctor told me what I did was impossible, like, I am a living, walking miracle that science can't explain. If you Google my eye disease today, it still says it's incurable. And I've met hundreds of people over the last 20 years who have similar anecdotes to me, like Brett, where they had something that was supposed to be incurable or something that pharmaceuticals was supposed to fix, and it didn't. And there are tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of anecdotes of people healing themselves with things that aren't modern pharma. That's not to say that modern pharma doesn't work for certain things. And again, I'm very appreciative of modern science for certain things. But a lot of our chronic issues are not going to be solved with pharmaceuticals. Ozempic is not a fix for what's happening with our obesity crisis.
Yeah, it reminds me of when we had Evan Britton on the podcast, and he said the best case for why he chooses to eat single ingredient real foods is he said that he feels that it develops his antenna to God. And I don't think it's a coincidence that you start eating God foods, you change your lifestyle, you heal this incurable disease, and then around the same time you start to believe in God too.
No doubt. No doubt. And I think, honestly, that's part of our epidemic. I think the farther we've gotten away from God, I think the sicker we've become. And I think we also have a crisis of love and connection. And everyone's just so isolated. And it's hard not to be. Just go to a restaurant at family mealtime when there's kids, and you'll see every kid on their phones, on their iPads. They're not talking to each other. And I'm guilty of it, by the way, all the time.
Yeah.
And
Same.
we are able to rationalize our enslavement to technology with workaholism and productivity, right? It's for work, and we have glorified the workaholic billionaire who works 100 hours a week, doesn't sleep, doesn't have a family life, doesn't know his kids. And there's a lot of those figures that we have glorified as something that like we should aspire to. And it is possible to live a great life, make plenty of money, build plenty of businesses, and still value your family first. And I think that if we start to prioritize family, love, and community first, we will heal tremendously. And that's even before we get all the poisons out of the food supply.